Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic conference. I do have to start with a confession. Design sprints have got very little, if anything, to do with Scrum. So although we're here in the Scrum track, if anybody feels that they really need to leave, I completely understand. And we will be talking about whiskey, a little part to do with my Scottish accent, and I know it was a big night last night for many people, so if that's a little bit too much for you, I equally understand that you need to move on. This is something that we do all the time in business. We take bets. And we take big bets, and often these are based on nothing more than gut instinct. Sometimes it's based on what do other companies do. Sometimes it's simply related to an article we've read in HBR. But this isn't something that Arnold Rothstein used to do. Arnold Rothstein was around in 1920s America. And in fact, he's considered to be one of the first people who recognized that prohibition, essentially stopping the manufacture, distribution, and sale of alcohol, was actually a fantastic business opportunity. And what Arnold did was he went around setting up a business where he would take whiskey from Scotland, import it into America, and distribute it to the society people. Now, Rothstein was particularly forward-thinking for his time, and many people consider that he is the founding father of modern-day criminal organizations. And that started me thinking, what would happen if 1920s-style prohibition happened today? And in particular, what would Arnold Rothstein choose to do with all the new technology and practices and patterns that we have at our hands? Would he use his gut instinct and decide he wanted to build something? Would he start with a product vision, a strategy, a backlog? I propose he may consider starting with a design sprint. Now, the first thing with a design sprint, of course, is you need to pull together your team. So the starting point for the team is Rothstein himself. Known as a Big Fix, he's believed to have been involved in the 1990 World Series Fix. He never took bets, despite being a prolific gambler, unless he knew what the outcome would be. So he always liked to test everything that he was doing. We have Al Capone joining the sprint, Scarface. Despite being a mobster with a particularly unruly reputation, he also became known for having a PR reputation as well. He promoted boxing fights, and at one point he even set up soup kitchens to feed people who were less well off. We have Virginia Hill, quite famous for being the partner of another famous mobster, Bugsy Siegel. But she was involved very much with distribution and courier services back in the day. Now we've got Lucky Luciano, we've got Frank Costello, we've got Mayor Lansky, all people who went about running the business for Albert Rothstein once it was up and running, so a deep understanding of logistics, about how whiskey would be imported and how it would be distributed. And then also we have Ma Baker. Ma Baker was the mother of many of the organizing people in the Baker gang, who were really quite notorious. But all of these different people have very different skill sets, from being able to make decisions, and in Albert Rothstein's situation, understand the customers and where the money's coming from, through to distribution, logistics, and organization. So out of this team of people coming along on 3 simulated design sprints we're about to do, Rothstein has a significant role of being a decider. So when any of these mob characters pull out the guns and start to disagree, Rothstein gets a casting vote. Ma Baker, being able to organize a very unruly criminal family and organization, she's a facilitator in this case. She's going to keep the team together, moving fast over the course of the week. So this is Agile by example, of course. I've simulated 3 design sprints that we're going to go through from beginning to end. And I'm going to propose what Rothstein may have come up with his unruly gang as real prototypes that they could put in front of people to test with. So, design sprint number 1. The first day of the design sprint is all about mapping. But before you can get into the details, you have to set the context. So Ma Baker takes the floor, and she describes that the first day, we're going to map out exactly the problem space, the customer segments, and what we want to achieve. And that has to start with Rostin setting the long-term target. Where do we really want to go in 5 years' time from now? By Tuesday, once we know what the problem space is and who our customers are, we're going to start sketching out potential solutions. We'll start that by looking at competitors, different industries, and then we'll mix and match different things that we've found and come up with some real potential solutions for ourselves. By Wednesday, we have all of the information that we need to actually decide what we may want to build during this sprint. And when I say build, I mean we are actually going to prototype. Now, prototyping for me as a technologist, before getting involved with design sprints, meant something very different. It may be a week or a couple of weeks where we would really quickly build something. But here, what we're doing is we're faking the interaction. We have to build something that appears to be high enough fidelity that we can get real reactions from people and make sure that we are potentially going to build the right thing, but we're not actually getting into the technical areas of how we would build it. So this is all about the future and ensuring we're building the right thing before we put the full team on that problem. And by the Friday, we're going to take that prototype and put it in front of potential users of those solutions. So within 1 week, we go from a problem space, how do we distribute whiskey and sell it to high society people, all the way through to a solution that's been prototyped and tested with real users. So Rothstein takes to the floor to set the long-term target. And he says, there is going to be a growing demand for whiskey during Prohibition. And I mean good whiskey. When I say good whiskey, I'm not talking about the gut-rot rubbish that you and all of your friends in the Lower East Side are making down in your chamber pots. I'm talking about Scottish whiskey, the best whiskey. There is a fortune to be made from importing the stuff. Now, as you know, I, Arnold Rothstein, mix with the society people. I know what they want, and I know that they have money. It's going to become the chic thing to have good whiskey when you have guests. And in fact, I believe that the rich are going to vie with one another to have the most lavish scotch at the table. But first, I must set down a very important principle. We must maintain a reputation for only having the very best whiskey. And with that, Rothstein has set out exactly what they want to do as a long-term ambition and focus on over the course of the sprint. Supply high-quality whiskey to society people. Now, Rothstein has got many assumptions in his statement to the team at the beginning. So this is a perfect time to take those assumptions and turn them into provable questions. So, will demand for good whiskey actually grow? Will it be chic to serve guests good whiskey? Will the rich really compete to serve the most lavish whiskey? Will people ignore prohibition laws? Bear in mind that this is all focused within a prohibition era, so there are real criminal penalties for anybody who breaks the law. Now, these are the types of assumptions that for many of us in our organization, we don't realize until we've already been building for a year or many months, and then it's very costly and people's careers are at stake before they can revert that. So the team together take an approach called dot voting to understand what is the most important of these questions that we should focus on this week. And it emerges quite quickly that people want to know, will the society people actually ignore prohibition laws? That becomes a target. So now, still in the Monday, we move on to mapping out the problem space. Now, this always starts with the customer, the society person. Now, in this process, the society person needs to find out what whiskey is available. So they're going to have to speak to some customer representative in Rothstein's organization, possibly him if he mixes in those circles. But then Rothstein probably doesn't know what whiskey is available. So he may need to speak to distribution managers, Lansky, Costello, Luciano. From there, he'll go back to the society person, discuss what whiskey is available. That confirmation of the order may come in, the distribution manager will arrange delivery, and then finally, the society person gets good whiskey in their hand. Now, there's no way over the course of a single week you can get everybody in that room that has all of the opinion and expertise that are required to ensure you build the right thing. So on the Monday afternoon, what we do is we phone in or invite in different experts. The experts are all able to review this map and point out different areas where there might be subtleties that have been missed or things that aren't perhaps quite accurate. So in this case, it so happens that a chief in the establishment recognised that you're going to have to pay me if you really want to get that whiskey out. So you're going to have to be able to arrange bribes. Now, throughout the course of the whole day, we have to gather key opportunities or key threats to the success of this. And the approach that we take is called how might we. Now you can see here, we put HMW in the top corner of the post-it. It stands for how might we, and then we capture all the different questions or opportunities that come up. Now, everybody has one of these notepads beside them, and over the course of the day, we quite quickly find that lots of opportunities and lots of challenges emerge. By the end of the Monday, we're in a position where we can start to arrange all of these into particular different areas that we should focus on, and then we can start to vote to see which of these how might we's might align with the big questions that we want to answer, and which of these can we actually go about solving over the course of the week. So finally on the Monday, an exhausting day, we've got to the point where we can put the key questions and the key how might we's onto that map, and we can start to identify which target we want to go after in this week. So we finish Monday. It's on to Tuesday. So Tuesday morning starts with what we call lightning demos. We'll look at that particular problem space and how it's been solved in different industries and by different companies. And we sketch out these different opportunities to see if we can rearrange them and take some motivation from there. We quite quickly then move on to sketching out potential solutions ourselves. So in this case, somebody's proposed that there could be a web app where you can go in and suggest how much you want to spend on whiskey, what your particular tastes are, and then it may make some suggestions and you can check out. Somebody else has suggested a Facebook bot, like everybody does in an enterprise these days. Somebody else has taken a slightly different idea that perhaps society people don't quite know what is good whiskey, and instead this is much more about a fashion statement. So can we potentially pair their lifestyle interests with a potential whiskey to help that problem of which whiskey would they like? By the Wednesday, we're now in a position to decide which of these we want to go after. And for the first time at this stage, the team get to see each other's sketches. Until this point, we've been largely working individually, but together as a group. And again, through dot voting, to prevent people with the biggest guns having the opinion and the final say, we're able to decide that this time, in this sprint, we want to build an app that essentially allows people to select a whiskey by their lifestyle choices. So Wednesday afternoon, we need to start storyboarding how are we going to make this prototype interact with our users. It's really important when you build a prototype that people interact with it in a way that simulates how they would in real life. So in this case, we want to start from the App Store. People want to then go ahead and install the app. Once the app opens, they're welcomed and they're informed that if they answer the following 5 lifestyle questions, they'll be able to receive a gift, complimentary, that allows them to sample something, maybe whiskey. So the way of representing it in this case is to have a slider coming from one extreme to another, in this case coming from delicate flavours through to smoky, having different visual representations of that in the app. And then what may the questions be that could help inform the people that they might like the whiskey? So delicate to smoky, tranquil to wild, light to rich. So finally, we're on to the prototyping day on the Thursday. All of this time until now has been about setting the context, making sure we're solving the right problem. Now we finally get to create something. As I said before, this is about faking the interaction. So these are the tools that I use to create the prototype that I'm going to show you in this case. Sketch is a rapid prototyping tool. InVision allows you to present back that prototype in some way. In this case, I've installed it on a phone. So anything that you see in that phone past the initial screen is fake. And Unsplash is a fantastic website where amateur photographers can contribute different photographs they've taken. So it's a great source of imagery. And this video shows you the prototype that I created. Now, I'm going into the app just now, and everything you see from this point is entirely faked, and I created this in a day. So even this App Store interaction and the searching in the App Store is all fake. And then we go ahead and we simulate selecting the app. I've called it Schlanjava, which means good health in Scotland. It's a typical toast. And then once that app is installed, people can start the process. They can use the slider to select potentially where they lie on different flavors, tastes, lifestyle choices. And then over the course of those decisions, they get to a final point where they're able to say, we're going to send you a special gift, and you'll be able to try that out. So using this prototype, we can then take that, put it in front of users, and see if it resonates with them and really makes a difference, turns into something that they might want to make a purchase with. The final day of our first sprint, we're testing. So what we're doing here is we're going to get people in a room, one person who's being tested with and the other person who's running through a script, and they're going to interact with the prototype that's been created. Now, we want to see exactly how they feel and how they interact with that thing to help us understand that we're about to invest in a product team that is actually going to build something that matters and will shift the needle on key business metrics. Now, in another room, separate, you've got all of the team that have been along on the journey that week, and potentially some other people from the organisation, perhaps people who have some cash available or people who need to be convinced at an executive level, if Rothstein had that in his organisation. And you're going to produce something scary that looks like this. And you can see along the top different key things that you want to test about that app or that prototype that's been built. And then you can see the 5 different people that we're going to test with along the left. And all of the spectators on that day are going to capture all the key observations, positive, negative, indifferent, and they're going to put that up on the screen. Now, by quick show of hands, who believes that a lifestyle selector for whiskey is a good idea? We've got a few hands, quite a small number. Who thinks it's not going to go down particularly well? Okay, we've actually got more people thinking this is a good idea. And this is exactly why we do the user testing within 5 days. So what you can see quite quickly is people are worried about having a prohibited substance, alcohol, associated with their phone. Some people think it's quite difficult to get access to the app through the App Store. So another fundamental assumption that's been wrong when we've been proposing this. I don't understand the free gift thing. Is it whiskey? Quite a big problem if the customers don't understand how to interact with the thing you've built. How are these questions ever going to get me good whiskey? It's a fair consideration. And in this case, I think we've learned over the course of a week that the thing that could have taken months to build is probably not a good idea to build. So, quickly, onto the second design sprint. Now, we're already saving some time because we've already explored the problem space and who our potential customers are. So now we're going to take a leap and start looking at how could we increase customers' access to ordering, prevent them having to always have access to Arnold Rothstein and talk with him over a period of time in order to get the right things. So day 2, sketching. How do other industries solve this problem? And then how could we go about solving it this week? Now in this case, someone's suggested a dash or a flick button in people's houses, so you can press it anytime you're desperate for whiskey. It's very popular in Scotland. Again, somebody's come out with another Facebook bot. Perhaps you could interact online, get suggestions and purchase. Everyone always suggests a Facebook bot these days. Then somebody suggested, what if there was an Alexa skill and people could order over voice in their homes? So we're then into the Wednesday, again, deciding day. First time that people have seen all of these designs and get to feedback with each other. And it emerges really quite quickly that the preferred option is an Alexa skill. So that's what we're going to prototype this time. Now, the afternoon of the Wednesday, as we said last time, is usually all about storyboarding. But in this case, for an Alexa skill, Say Spring, the application you're about to see, actually doubles both as a prototyping tool and for the storyboarding. So what I did in this case was I just used the tool and explored with it in order to build up the storyboard and the actual product itself, the actual prototype. And this is a screen from, say, Spring. You can see we're going through a place order track. We've got different types of interaction. You can set up different responses. And then the outcome of that would be something like this. Hey, Alexa, could you open my prototypes, please?
Welcome to Safe Spring. The available projects are Schlange. Which project would you like to open?
Thanks, Alexa. Could you open Schlange, please?
Welcome to Schlange. What can I get you?
I've still got a bit of a cold, and it's been a really good conference. I think I'll celebrate with a couple of bottles of King's Ransom, please.
Good choice. King's Ransom is a favourite of mine. 2 bottles are on the way to you. Should I deliver them to your usual address?
Oh, no, actually, I'm still in Warsaw, and I'll need them a bit sooner than getting home to Sweden. So if you could send them to my friend's house near the conference, please.
Of course. 2 bottles of King's Ransom are now on their way to your friend's house. Can I get you anything else?
No, I think 2 bottles of King's Ransom's plenty for one day. Thank you, Alexa.
Thank you for ordering. Schlange.
Now, for the technologists in the room, of course, this isn't a real interaction. But you'd be amazed when you bring people into test with how easily you can simulate something and they just believe it's real because they have no real concept of the effort that needs to go into building something. So in this case, not only have we used the sound from Say Spring, and you can also put that onto an echo itself, but accompanied it with a visual, and that would be plenty for that testing process. So we've made it to Friday. Time to get real feedback on what we're proposing to build. Show of hands, who thinks an Alexa skill for ordering whiskey is a good idea? Okay, a bit more popular this time. Who thinks it's going to fall flat on its face? Okay, more in the positive category. I think it's fair to say that this time it was more positive. People did feel it was really convenient and natural to use. People actually felt a little bit safe in ordering whiskey using their voice. They probably suspect that that's due to that interaction, though, and they're aware it's not that safe. Another thing that came up in the testing was, could this really be tracked back to me? So still a bit of nervousness about breaking the prohibition laws, coming back perhaps to the initial question in one of the sprints about will people be willing to break those laws? Then the final question, this would actually entice me into buying some scotch. So starting to become more positive. So really successful so far, looking good, but perhaps there's room for improvement. So let's run one more design sprint. I'll be honest, this is probably the one that I had the most fun with. So in this case, on the Monday, again, we've saved ourselves some time. We're going to go about looking at how could customers sample whiskey before actually purchasing. Not an easy task during prohibition. So again, we sketch out potential competitors' solutions. We see what could we do, how could we reuse some of the fantastic ideas out there in the industry. And then this time, a Facebook bot has been replaced with Tinder for whiskey. If you want to sample whiskey in the local area, swipe left, swipe right, and however all that mechanism works. Somebody else suggested a whiskey tasting event, which nobody ever said all the good ideas would come out of this. Again, I think there's some privacy challenges around prohibition here. And then someone proposed, what if we built a container that had a hidden compartment within it, and then we could use that to distribute whiskey to people who wanted to sample it. So into the Wednesday, we're now at the point where we want to know, what are we going to build? We're going to take that decision. And it came out overwhelmingly for creating a physical thing. So storyboarding, Wednesday afternoon. So we need some kind of contraption, some kind of hidden space in the bottom. That thing's going to have to be big enough to hold some whiskey and be distributed. It might need a key of some kind that can open up the contraption. All of that's got to fit together snugly in a way that if the authorities intercepted it, they perhaps wouldn't know to look there. And of course, Rothstein's all about the society people and being very premium. So we want that to be delivered in a nice packaged way. Prototyping. Now, I'll be honest, I simply don't have the CAD skills to be able to create something like this. However, through Upwork, I was able to get in contact with Darko, and he was absolutely able to do this in only 5 hours for me. And he brought back something like this. So this is a 3-dimensional model of the bottle that would be able to distribute the whiskey inside it. Now, the files that he sent to me after I spoke with him, I uploaded them here to a site called 3D Hubs. The 3D Hubs allows you to find 3D printers in your local area. When you upload the images, it's able to give you a quote, it's able to give you feedback on whether or not that could actually be printed or where the weaknesses in the system are. Allows you to then feedback with different people that have responded to you and find hopefully the best person who can print that thing for you. So from there, I was able to give it to Göran in Göteborg in Sweden. Now, Göran used to work in R&D. He retired, but he'd always had visions of having his own workshop, his own lab. So he built this 3D printer on his own. So he came and he met with me, and we spoke through why I was doing it, and he got quite excited as well. And then after that, he took away the designs, and he actually started creating them for me. And very kindly then went on to format them afterwards. So here, you can see the very nice, high-quality bag. And within that bag, we have a 3D printed bottle. And also in here somewhere, I don't know if the camera can see, we have a little key. And if I just unscrew this in the bottom, you can actually see, hopefully, if the lights are right, an inside container where we could hide our whiskey and distribute it, perhaps through that courier business, out to all the people so that they can sample it. And perhaps then go on and use Alexa in order to order it over voice UI. So testing. And you can probably guess where I'm going to go with this. Who thinks the people who were tested with thought this was a good idea? A few more hands. Yeah, you've guessed where I'm going with this. So, yeah, the feedback was positive. People loved that it was a secret hidden compartment, something that they could be part of, feel like they're part of a secret crowd with a secret whiskey being distributed. It feels exciting, and you get to sample whiskey. Always a benefit if you're testing with Scottish people. I like that I can try before I buy. This could allow me to be more adventurous with the whiskies that I want to purchase. And then finally, I might have a sampling party with my friends. So I think we've actually proven at this point that people would be willing to break prohibition laws like they were in 1920s America, and we've probably figured out exactly what we need to build now. Now, just to close, I said, how can you use design sprints for building agility? One of the biggest issues that I often see when you're trying to introduce agility building practices is we've got quite used to doing it in a silo. And maybe that's because of the wider organization and how we interact, but we need to do better at breaking down those silos and extending the benefits and the values of different agility building practices to the rest of the organization. And if you start to frame this through the perspective of some of the things that we value in Agile, we focus from the very beginning on individuals and interactions. We've got people with different skills and probably never met each other before, together in one room, working intensely over the course of that week. We've produced working prototypes, so not software in all cases in this case, but we're focusing on building working things to get early feedback. Customer collaboration is the whole focus of the week, to get the feedback that we need to progress. And finally, responding to change. We find out a lot of information over the course of the design sprint about the process, about the customers, about different tastes and how it works within our business. We have to respond to change many times that week, never mind in a monthly or yearly cycle. A quote that I actually heard live last week at Go to Copenhagen. A culture of people willing to learn, that's my definition of Agile, by Linda Rising. And I think that's what design sprints are all about. It's about learning rapidly. Now, I can't take the credit for design sprints. It's Jeff Knapp and the team at Google. So if you want to get started and try something like this, purchase the book. It's fantastic. It takes you through everything that you need to know. Thank you.